All right, UFC Fight Night Paris. Imavov versus Borallho, full card predictions. I've got a really bad sore throat, so my voice might go. So I'm going to try to make this quick, especially with these earlier fights. But let's get straight into it. First fight of the card, we've got Shauna Bannon versus Sam Hughes. I'm going Sam Hughes. She's been kind of a fraud checker of these shitty strawweights. I think her performance against Dudikova was pretty good. Luciano was pretty good. I don't know if she won out of those fights, like, clearly. In fact, I remember thinking that Dudikova should have won. But I think that Dudikova is significantly better than Shauna Bannon. And Shauna Bannon doesn't have a very good style for beating Sam Hughes. She has a lot of like lead leg teeps and side kicks, and that's a good way to get taken down. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think she's going to land a couple side kicks to the body that do nothing, and then get one caught, or just, get shot on while she's throwing one and end up on the bottom. And I think she's going to spend probably like 10 minutes on the bottom and lose by decision. So yeah, I'm going with Sam Hughes. Next fight the card, Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Andreas Gustafsson. I'm going to go with Andreas Gustafsson. I think he's got the perfect style to beat Rinat Fakhretdinov, which is a lot of activity in the clinch and breaking down, beating up his opponents. Yeah, I mean, that's what he did to Chaos Williams, and Chaos Williams isn't a guy who gets like bitched around easily. Chaos Williams is known for being pretty strong and resilient to. I can't think of a time where Chaos Williams just got like taken down and beaten up, or bitched around the clinch. I guess Bonfim kind of did him, but yeah, I liked Gustafsson's performance in that fight a lot. And when I think of the people that had good performances against Fakhretdinov, like Leal and Dalby and Alessio Zaleski dos Santos, who I think all probably should have won. Maybe not dos Santos, but I think that Leal and Nicolas Dalby should have won that fight, their fights. They were a lot of activity, and yeah, I mean, that's it. A lot of activity, making them slow down over the course of the fight. I think that Gustafsson is so much, not better at that style, but like so much more committed to that style, that I think he'll probably get a finish later in the fight. I think a lot of knees to the body in the clinch will make Fakhretdinov break into like the third round or something like that. So I'm going to go with Gustafsson by elite TKO, or to win like a rounds 2 and 3 decision. I can see him getting taken down and maybe held down, but Fakhretdinov isn't the best finisher in the world, and Gustafsson survived. I don't think he's ever been finished, and he did a good job staying out of the way of damage against Chaos Williams. Chaos Williams is one of those guys where it's like he's known for his power. He can be losing a fight and just land a punch. Like, I think he was losing to Carlson Harris. Maybe not, but he I don't know. In that fight, if you picked Carlson Harris, if you bet on him, you were worried about him getting knocked out the whole time. And Gustafsson did a good job of keeping those worries down and staying on him the whole time. So I'm going to Gustafsson to do the same against Fakhretdinov. Next fight of the card, Brad Tavares versus Robert Bryczek. I don't think Bryczek is very good at fighting. I think he could be decent. I mean, he had a lot of wins coming into the UFC consecutively against, I guess, not very good competition, but decent regional fighters. But he looked really bad against Ihor Potieria, and I don't necessarily think a loss to Potieria means you're done. Potieria looked pretty good against Cesar Almeida, and barring a couple eye pokes, I mean, that was Cesar Almeida's fight to lose, and Potieria was actually doing pretty decent in that fight. So I don't hate a loss to him, but losing in the way that he lost, where he didn't look very good. He never really had his way in that fight. Pretty bad look. That's not really happened to anyone else except for like Shogun, who was like, 37 and 10 years past his prime, or fucking 15 years past his prime. So, the thing about Tavares is you're not going to be able to take him down really easily. You're not going to be able to hold him down really easily, and he's really hard to finish. He's only been finished by RoboCop and Robert Whittaker, who are much better than Bryczek. So I think Tavares is going to survive this fight and probably just low kicks on the outside, be better at range, and counter wrestling to get a decision win. Next fight up the card, Sam Patterson versus Trey Waters. Yeah, Trey Waters is really bad, and I'm watching other people's predictions, and they're like, Trey Waters, he's pretty good, but I think I'm going to go with Sam Patterson because he's underrated. I've never seen Trey Waters look good in a fight ever. Like, Bonfim took him down and then held him down and submitted him with a Von Flue choke, which is a pretty amateurish way to get submitted. Especially at 170 and lower, you shouldn't be getting submitted with Von Flue chokes. He beat Josh Quinlan, who went on to lose 3 in a row and get cut from the UFC. It was a win that looked decent at the time, especially on short notice, but Josh Quinlan really has not panned out. He's looked pretty horrible. And then the Billy Goff fight, first of all, he should have lost that fight. He was getting touched up. It was a close fight, but in a good fight, but he should have lost. And that fight was super low level. I mean, that fight looked like two debuting pros, or maybe two good amateurs fighting, who were just good because of their size. And he looked. I really don't think he looked that good in that fight. And Billy Goff has fought since then and lost in looked like shit. He got submitted by a standing guillotine by Brahimaj right away. And Brahimaj isn't good. Sam Patterson is, I think, a much higher level fighter than that. He did get slimed out by Yanela Schmooze, but he should never have been a 155er. And Trey Waters usually wins because of his size. Quinlan, he had an advantage because he was 7 inches taller than him, and had reach advantage. But he's barely taller than Sam Patterson. I don't think he's actually 6'5". I think he's probably 6'4". I think Patterson's probably 6'2", maybe 6'3". So I think he's about an inch taller, maybe a little more. And he has a reach disadvantage. So I don't think the Trey Waters advantages that he usually has are going to be anywhere in this fight. And I think Sam Patterson actually looked like a decent technical fighter in his last fight against Danny Borallho. And if he can land the punch that he landed on Danny Borallho to rock him and then finish him, I think he can land on Trey Waters, who is pretty poor defensively and usually has it tall man defense. And when you have a reach disadvantage and the other guy overthrows his punches like Patterson does, you really don't want to just lean back and rely on your size to defend yourself. So I'm gonna go with Sam Patterson. I think he's gonna drop Trey Waters and then submit him from on top with an arm triangle or maybe a Kimura or something. Probably not Kimura because he's not very strong, and Trey Waters has long arms. But something like that. Some submission from on top. Maybe an arm bar. Maybe a I don't know. I guess probably not a triangle from out. Probably an arm triangle. That's most likely. Next fight of the card, we've got Kawhi Fernandez versus Harry Hardwick. Now, Kawhi Fernandez was originally supposed to fight Freziem. And for the record, I would have picked Freziem to beat him. However, Freziem pulled out, and Harry Hardwick stepped in on. He stepped in yesterday, and the fight's in 3 or 4 days. So he stepped on 5-6 day notice. Harry Hardwick, I think, is really good, and I'm glad he's in the UFC. I think he's going to be an interesting addition to probably the featherweight division. But this fight is at 155, and it's against kind of an oddball in Kawhi Fernandez, a guy we don't know a ton about. I'm tempted to pick Harry Hardwick because I think that skill-wise, he's probably better than a guy like Mark Chikadze, who beat Kawhi Fernandez by decision. However, I think Kawhi Fernandez is actually deceivingly good. His style is very strange, and it makes him look like a low level amateurish fighter. But I think it actually will work. Also, for one, I don't think Harry Hardwick is taller than Kawhi Fernandez. I could be wrong, but Kawhi Fernandez strikes me as a kind of tall lightweight, and Harry Hardwick is a normal height featherweight in my head. So I think that they're probably about the same height. If not, I think Kawhi might be taller. I really thought that Kawhi Fernandez's last 2 performances were pretty good. He beat Graham by decision, which, I think Graham is 13-5 now, which is an ugly record. But Graham did give a lot of people tough fights, including Jordan Vucenic, who I would consider a better prospect than Harry Hardwick. Graham beat him clearly, beat him according to most people. And then Kawhi Fernandez pretty clearly beat Graham. I think Graham's a good fighter, and beating him by decision, clearly, is impressive. And Harry Hardwick, I think, is a good fighter, and I might pick him under different circumstances. But him taking this fight on, 5-6 days notice, up weight class, I'm probably not going to pick him. So I also don't really see him getting a finish. He's not the best finisher against, a good competition. I don't think he's really fought anyone that's we've seen have success at the top level of the weight class, and I don't really see him getting a finish against a high level fighter on short notice. So if Kawhi's going to beat Graham by decision, I think he can beat Harry Hardwick by decision, especially on short notice. It is a 3-round fight, and Hardwick has been fighting 5-round fights in his last few. I just still think that short notice again, not what we want to see. So I'm going to go with Quiet Fernandez, but I think Harry Hardwick can beat a lot of the like unranked featherweights. So I'm glad he's in the UFC somehow. Like his brother, like lost in the Contender Series and then lost on the fight before. Like I think he was supposed to be on last week's episode of the Contender Series originally, but he lost his last fight in Cage Warriors, and the guy he lost to lost in the Contender Series. So, yeah, enough about that fight. I'm going to pick Quiet Fernandez. Next we have the card, Marcin Tybura versus Ante Delija. I'm going to pick Ante Delija, and that's just because I really didn't like Marcin Tybura's last performance, and I think Delija's better than that. Marcin Tybura takes advantage of, like, inexperienced, new, like most people when they fight Marcin Tybura, he's the best fighter they've fought, or the best fighter they have fought and then not lost to. Like Jonathan is, Marcin Tybura is the best fighter he'd fought, and McParkin probably the same thing. But I really think that Marcin Tybura looked like pretty washed and low level against McParkin, and I think that it was a really close fight. I mean, I think a lot of people scored it towards McParkin, and the other half of people scored it towards Marcin Tybura. And I think Ante Delija is a better fighter than McParkin, who's pretty shit. Ante Delija has a finish over Renan Ferreira, which is pretty impressive. Renan Ferreira is a massive heavyweight. And yeah, I just think that Ante Delija is like technical, or not technical, but he's like heavyweight technical. He's not easy to finish. He's not easy to take down. And that's a lot of what you see from guys who lose to Tybura. You see a guy like Jonathan is, who's looked impressive on the feet, but got taken down and held down and lost round 1 to Austin Lane. Had a hard time putting pressure on Carl Williams. As soon as he meets a guy like Tybura, I'm not surprised that he loses. But when you got a guy who's experienced, who's fought, the upper level of like the outside of UFC heavyweights, he fought Moldavsky, he fought Yorgan De Castro, who's been cuffed in the UFC, he's pretty shit, but he finished him. He fought Maurice Green, another guy who was, former UFC ranked heavyweight. So I think Delija's, he's seen, this level of heavyweight before. It's not a surprise to him. And if Tybura looks anywhere near as bad as he did against McParkin, I think Delija gets a pretty easy decision win. Next fight on the card, Oumar Sy versus Brendson Ribeiro. I'm pretty 50-50 on this fight, just because I really did not like Oumar Sy's last performance, and Brendson Ribeiro gives a tough fight to everyone. Other than Kyle Machado, anytime he's fought in the UFC, he, like, I don't know how to put it, but he kind of like, he doesn't fight like he's a massive underdog, even though he has been before. Like, I think he was a pretty big underdog when he fought Zhang Mingyang, and he was trading with him early on. Same thing with Azamat Murzakanov. He was like plus 800 or something against Murzakanov, and he was willing to trade with him early on. But I don't like how easily he was taken down, and how like he didn't really do shit on the feet against Nurgoje, who hasn't looked very impressive since then. And when I went back and watched his older fights, DRs, I wasn't that impressed with him either. So I'm going to go with Oumar Sy to probably just take down or hold down Brendson Ribeiro. Yeah, I don't think Oumar Sy is all that. I didn't like his last performance against Alonzo Menifeld. I think a lot of people are excusing it as, oh, it's his first time fighting a ranked opponent. He didn't have a great performance, but it was close. But if you're going to fight Alonzo Menifeld and you're not going to get chinned, like, you should destroy him. Like, if you're going to have a tit-for-tat outside fight with Alonzo Menifeld and you're supposed to be, like, a good prospect, you should destroy him. And he didn't. So, and then again, I guess Alonzo Menifeld did beat and then have a draw with Jimmy Crute. So maybe not. But still, I don't really like that performance. I think it is really bad. But I think Oumar Sy is above Brendson Ribeiro. And again, what is with... Do you think Dana White knows who Brendson Ribeiro is? Like, I wonder if he does. Because it seems like every single time Ribeiro fights, he's fighting, he's like he's not the main character. Like, Oumar Sy, he's the main character. Azamat Murzakanov, he's the main character, Maybe not Nurgoje, but like Magomed Gadjieshlov, he was supposed to win that fight and be like the main character. Mingyang Zhang, he was supposed to be the main character. And it's weird, Brendson Ribeiro keeps getting these fights that are like, when he's getting picked for these fights, no one's thinking about, how does this affect Ribeiro's career? Everyone's just thinking about, oh, this should be a win for Oumar Sy. This should be a win for Mingyang Zhang. I don't know. Weird matchmaking. I could see him winning, but I think Oumar Sy is the favorite for a reason, even though he had a really bad performance in his last one. Next fight up the card, William Gomis versus Robert Ruchala. I'm going with the underdog here, Robert Ruchala. I think William Gomis is pretty overrated. I talked a lot about it in my prediction on UFC 317 for Hyder Mills' last fight against Jose Delgado. I talked about how I didn't love a close fight with Gomis. And I know Gomis has a close fight with everyone, but if you want a more detailed breakdown, go watch that. But Joanderson Brito, a lot of people gave him a lot of respect for that win. And I think Brito is decent, but since then, he's fought Pat Sabatini and looked horrible. And then Brito has had some bad performances earlier in his career. Lost by decision to Bill Algeo. Lost clearer to Bill Algeo than William Gomis. So I don't think Gomis is all that high level. And I think that he's not going to finish Robert Ruchala because he didn't finish anyone. I think that if this fight's going to be close, I like a debuting, dynamic, explosive, aggressive guy like Ruchala to go out there and just, do what makes up the difference to win the close fight. Going to a majority decision with Jarno Aarons and a split decision with, who is it? Francis Marshall, right? I think. Yeah. He's other than Giannis Kamori, he went to a split decision with Hyder Mill, Joanderson Brito, Francis Marshall, and a majority decision to Jarno Aarons. I think that Ruchala knows that the fight's probably going to be close if he doesn't go out there and be aggressive and take the initiative to win the fight. And I think that he's going to do that. Not a home crowd, but he's in front of a European crowd. I know it's William Gomis' home crowd, but they didn't really get behind him because he's pretty fucking boring. So I think being in front of a European crowd with fans in the crowd and being, a UFC debutant coming from a different promotion, I can see Ruchala going out there and making up the difference that Gomis is not going to, and winning the fight by decision. And I think he's more likely to get a finish, if anyone's going to get a finish here. People are talking shit about losing to Saladin Parnasse. I can imagine people. I haven't really heard anyone do that, but I can imagine, usually when people are coming from outside of the UFC and they have a recent loss to someone who's not in the UFC currently, people talk shit about it. But William Gomis also lost to Saladin Parnasse, and Parnasse is good. I think he would beat. He beat Gomis before, but I think he would beat Gomis. He would be the big favorite. So I'm gonna pick Ruchala. I just think he's got the skill set and the my perceived motivation to go out there and win this fight. And I don't think Gomis is that good. I think he's pretty overrated. So yeah. Next fight of the card, Patricio Pitbull versus Losene Kieta. I'm gonna pick Losene Kieta, Losene, because of the Chihiro Suzuki fight. If you watch even the Yair Rodriguez fight, but especially the Ige fight, Patricio Pitbull got a lot of advantage in that fight because Ige was super patient. I know that Pitbull's good at timing like takedowns and straight right hands off of the like counters, which would be, you would want to be patient to avoid that. However, Ige made himself really predictable by being patient, and he ended up losing because of that. He got dropped, and he got taken down, and he got held down. A guy like Losene Kieta, I can see going out there and just taking advantage of the timidness of Pitbull and landing outside low kicks, and landing straight right hands and hurting, and maybe finishing Pitbull. If you watch the Chihiro Suzuki fight, Chihiro Suzuki is standing in striking range with Pitbull the entire fight, feinting, throwing, switching it up, throwing left hooks, right hands, going to the body a little bit, throwing leg kicks, and then he takes a step in, gets really close, throws a right hand, Pitbull tries to get out of the way and counter it. He gets hit right on the chin and gets knocked out. And I can see Kieta doing the same thing. I think he's good, aggressive, explosive, and he's got, good finishing ability, good finishing instincts, and I think that's a bad matchup for Pitbull, especially a guy who is tiny for the division. He's not going to be able to just, I think, take down and hold down Kieta. I don't think he's going to be able to, land a punch where Kieta couldn't land a punch at him. I just think that, I don't really know how Pitbull wins this, other than, I guess, decision if he makes it, really boring, but I don't think Kieta's going to let him. So, I'm going to go Kieta to either get, a round one knockout or get a lead and then just coast and lead and let Pitbull have to, make up the difference. And Pitbull's not very good at being down by 2 rounds and going out and winning a third, or getting a 10-8 or getting a finish late. So I'm gonna pick Kieta to win. I had more to say, I think. But yeah, just either get a finish early or maybe get a lead and then coast on the lead. Next up the card. This is on the main card. What the fuck? Axel Sola versus Rhys McKee. I'm going to go with Rhys McKee. I'm surprised he's an underdog. I don't know a ton about Axel Sola, but I watched his fights, and he's not that good. I mean, he gets in like pretty scrappy fights. He is undefeated, I guess, but I don't really think very much of the competition at Aries FC. They don't have a ton of UFC fighters coming out of there, and the ones that have come out of there haven't been, absurd or anything like that. I think Rhys McKee's pretty good. I think he's underrated. He was an underdog against Daniel Frunza, which makes me think Vegas has doubts about him. And I guess he is like weak for his size, and he is a little chinny. But I don't really think Axel Sola is the kind of guy that's going to go out there and like hold him against the fence and beat him up. I think he's going to take him down and hold him down if he does. And I think McKee probably has an advantage when it comes to like tit for tat striking on the outside, which is I imagine where this fight's going to be. I can see Sola trying to get in and slip punches and throw hooks or whatever, and like try to find the inside. I just don't know how good he's going to be at that, being like a 5'11" former lightweight. And I think Rhys McKee probably. I mean, I really liked his boxing against Daniel Frunza, landing like sneaky punches. So I think that's probably what he's going to do to Axel Sola too. Yeah, I can see him winning by a finish. I think it's more likely he gets like a knockdown or two throughout the fight and wins a decision, like pretty clearly. But yeah, I think that's most likely he wins a decision. But I think he can get a finish with a punch or two. I don't really think Axel Sola is that good. I mean, this is kind of an important fight. Actually, so was the last one with Losene Kieta. And so was the one with Ruchala. I mean, the results of these fights kind of matter a lot because this is what I'm basing my opinion, like for Ruchala. So what I'm basing my like KSW, lighter weight class opinion on. Same thing with Losene Kieta with Octagon. That's where he's at, right? Yeah. And then Axel Sola with Aries FC. We don't really know a ton about prospects out of Aries FC, and the results of these fights will matter. But I'm going to pick Rhys McKee to win this. I just think he's a little more proven. And I think he's also improving. So, I mean, Axel Sola is pretty young. He's probably improving too. I've liked the improvements that I've seen directly in Rhys McKee. So, yeah. Next up the card, Borallho versus Mason Jones. I'm picking Mason Jones. I think Mason Jones is really good. I'm surprised the odds aren't wider because I haven't seen a ton of, fantastical things out of Borallho. He looked decent against Michael Aswell, but this is how I try to imagine it. Like, he fought Michael Aswell, maybe on short notice, I can't quite remember, and looked decent. He just had like a 10-punch lead every round and won pretty clearly by decision. I just imagine, like, if Mason Jones was fighting Michael Aswell there, he's putting on a clinic. Like, he's beating him up, he's taking him down, he's, trapping the far side wrist and punching him in the head against the cage. I think he would do a lot better than Borallho did, and because of that, I'm going to pick him. Mason Jones only lost to Mike Davis and Ludovic Klein, and I think he pretty clearly beat Mike Davis. So in my head, his only loss is to Ludovic Klein, who lost his last fight, but has looked really good in the UFC so far. I think Mason Jones is really good. Probably should have never been cut, and I think I'll win this fight pretty clearly. I think I'll put on a clinic. I'll go all in on him. I just think he's a much better fighter. So I'm going to go with Mason Jones by decision. I can see him having an advantage on the feet, having an advantage in the wrestling, and I don't really see Borallho getting like a submission off his back or some big reversal ending up on top. And even then, I don't think if Borallho is that good of a finisher. So, like split decision with Timmy Kwamba, like Mason Jones is not Timmy Kwamba level. He's much better. So he was as good as Mike Davis was, 7 years ago or 5 years ago, whenever they fought. I think they fought in the Apex. And he's improved a lot. So I don't know. I'm going to pick Mason Jones pretty clearly. Next fight up the card, Modestas Bukauskas versus Paul Craig. I'm never picking Paul Craig again. I'm just going to, I'm going to pick Bukauskas by first round knockout. I don't know if he's going to get it, but I feel like if you're not knocking out Paul Craig in the first round, what are you doing, So, I'm going to pick maybe not first round, but if you're not knocking out Paul Craig or, like, schooling him, I'm not picking you against anyone. So, there's that. I think a lot of people might be giving Paul Craig credit for not, losing embarrassingly in his last fight to Borallho. But he should have been disqualified, and like that wasn't a good performance by him. I don't know why Onion's picking Paul Craig. I think Bukowski is smart enough to know you don't play the guard game against Craig. If you knock him down, let him up. If you take him down, pass guard or let him up. 2 in, 2 out, all the basics. The book has been written, How to Beat Paul Craig, and I'm sure Bukowskis is reading it. So I'm going to pick him. Next fight of the card, co-main event. Benoit Saint-Denis versus Mauricio Ruffy. I'm picking Mauricio Ruffy. I think he's the perfect stylistic matchup for Benoit Saint-Denis. And I talked about this a lot in the Bobby Green fight with how chinny Bobby Green was, but when it comes to getting hit, Benoit Saint-Denis is your guy. He's a slow lightweight, and he is very open on the feet. Watch the Moises fight. Benoit Saint-Denis won. That fight was in Paris. That was at UFC Paris in 2023. But watch how, when Moises gets up against the fence, how Benoit approaches him. He goes both hands down, swinging hooks from the hip, chin right in the air, and he got tagged a couple times, and then did the same thing against Poirier in the second round. As soon as the fight became a little bit scrappy, he dropped both hands, and he just started swinging, and he got chinned. And I think that's what's going to happen here. My breakdown of the fight, what I think is going to happen is I think that round 1, Benoit is going to win by, maybe not win, but I think what's going to happen is he's going to pressure Ruffy, he's going to get him to back up, which is rare for Ruffy in the first round, but I think Benoit is the guy to do it. I think Ruffy's going to back up against the cage and then circle out. And as he circles out, he's probably going to hit with a couple body kicks, maybe a couple punches to the body. He might get, taken down or almost taken out against the cage. And then I think that Ruffy's going to land a couple outside low kicks. He's going to land a couple body kicks, body punches, maybe a couple like right hooks that land, and people are worried about Benoit's chin. And then I think the second round, it's going to start kind of similarly, but Benoit's going to slow down. His footwork's going to get worse. His cage count is going to get worse. I think he's going to get less patient. I think he's going to start winging hooks as soon as he gets Ruffy backed up against the cage. I think Ruffy's going to go spinning elbow and knock out Benoit. Now, a lot of people think, that are picking Benoit, think that because of the James Yontop fight, Ruffy is going to gas, and Benoit's going to take him down and beat him up like he did Poirier in the first round, and maybe get a finish late or 10-8 in rounds 1 and 2, and then lose round 3 to win a clear decision. And I can see why you think that if you watch the Yontop fight. However, there is a ton of context for the Yontop fight. One, Ruffy was preparing for a striker. And I know there wasn't a lot of grappling, but he was preparing for a striker that was going to trade with him in the pocket, not take punches and then return. He was I don't know what the guy's name is, but he's training for Charlie Campbell, I'm pretty sure his name is. Took a fight and then he took a late notice replacement against Yontop, who didn't cut weight, who weighed a lot more than Ruffy. And Ruffy had to cut weight, so there's that. Also, like I said, Yontop didn't have to cut weight, and Yontop's known for being a fat guy who has a good chin and doesn't gas. That's kind of his thing. And that's what he did. He took a lot of good punches that I think would finish Benoit, and he didn't gas, which Benoit doesn't do because he does gas. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, if Ruffy has the round 1 and 2 that he did against James Yontop against Benoit Saint-Denis getting knocked out. So I think that using that fight against, and by the way, Ruffy had a dominant round 1 and 2 where he landed 2 knockout blows against Yontop. And people are talking about that fight as a slight on his name. A little stupid. He did lose round 3. Whatever. And then, yeah, if you want to watch a more accurate depiction of what's probably going to happen, watch Ruffy's fight in the Contender Series, which, by the way, he was losing before he got the finish. However, the opponent that he was fighting, I think, is much better at the game plan that people are talking about Benoit doing than Benoit is. And the guy's pretty good, and he was a welterweight. What the fuck was his name? Was it Magomed Aliyev? Yeah, Raymond Magomed Aliyev. He tried to keep up with Ruffy on the feet. The footwork was hard for him to follow. When he got the grappling working, he had put a lot of effort into it. And then by round 3, he gassed out. Ruffy, the guy ran in to shoot a takedown against Cage. Ruffy read it, threw a spinning elbow, rocked him, reversed his takedown into mount, and then finished him with a ground and pound. And that instinct to throw a spinning elbow when the guy's running at you with his hands, at his waist, when he's gassed, is, I think, a good read. And I think it'll be a good read that works against Benoit. Yeah, I think if Benoit does the same thing as that guy, I think he'll have less success because he's not a welterweight and he's not as good at that game plan. And he'll gas faster. So yeah, what else is there to say? Oh, another thing. What was I going to say? Oh, so I talked about how Benoit fought Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises is now a training partner of Mauricio Ruffy, which doesn't matter a ton in matchups, but Poirier was a training partner with Renato Moicano, and Poirier did not have a very good performance against Benoit Saint-Denis, especially in the first round, but he gave Moicano all the advice he needed to go out there and have a dominant first round against Benoit. And same thing with like Moises. Moises did not have a very good first round against Benoit, but he's training with Ruffy, and he can give Ruffy the book on how to beat Benoit or have a good first round against him. I don't know how much that stuff actually matters, but I think it probably matters a little bit. So yeah, and the grappling. There's a lot of questions with the Fighting Nerds grappling. I think a lot of people see them as strikers, so like, oh, they're strikers, they have a lot of hype. They're probably gonna lose, so yeah, I'm gonna assume that they're lose eventually. They're probably gonna lose by grappling because they're hyped up prospects that are good strikers. They probably suck at grappling. But if you watch Gene Silva against Bryce Mitchell, he had really good grappling defense. If you watch Carlos Prates against Ian Gary and against Neil Magny, he had really good grappling defense. If you watch Kyle Borallho, he's got really good grappling. So, yeah, I think Ruffy's grappling is going to be pretty good. So, yeah, I'm going to pick Ruffy. I think he's got every matchup in his favor. It's an interesting matchup. I definitely want to see him against a grappler, who's high level. Another thing is, like, Benoit has looked pretty shit in his last 3 fights. I know he won his last fight pretty clearly, but it was against a bum, a short notice replacement bum in Kyle Propolic. And I don't really think he looked that good in that fight. He looked slow. It looked like he'd slowed down even since the Moicano fight. He looked tentative. He didn't want to get hurt. But if he has that performance against Ruffy, he's getting slimed out. Another thing, I said the Moicano fight earlier. Moicano cut open Benoit and hurt him really bad in that fight. So I got to imagine he's got a ton of scar tissue on his face. And if Ruffy's going to throw knees and spinning elbows like I think he should, then he's got a pretty good chance of opening a cut in this fight, getting stopped by doctor stoppage. So yeah, I'm going to pick Ruffy just pretty clearly. And also, my voice is completely going, so I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'll do the main event prediction. All right, main event. Nasruddin Imavov versus Kyle Borallho. I'm going to go with Kyle Borallho. I'm picking both Brazilians in the main and co-main against the Frenchman. Yeah, the reason why I'm picking Borallho is because I think that he is one of the better fighters in the middleweight division today, maybe ever, at being a tit-for-tat outside, boring fight merchant. I know we've had Adesanya, and Adesanya lost to Imavov. I know we've had guys like Imavov won that kind of fight against Cannonier. However, he did lose to Strickland in that kind of fight style. And I think Kyle Borallho is better than Strickland at winning boring fights. Maybe not in the striking, but if you include the grappling. Another thing with the Imavov against Adesanya and Imavov against Cannonier. For one, I think Borallho looked better against Cannonier than Imavov did, other than the finish. And I think that Borallho actually finished Cannonier and Imavov didn't. But whatever. I might not think that if that fight, if Imavov had that, was it a 3rd round finish or a 4th round finish against Cannonier? If that was just him beating up Cannonier for the rest round and then going on to win the 5th round, I might think that his performance is better. So maybe not. But with the that fight and with the Adesanya fight, Imavov he's losing these rounds. Against Adesanya, he was losing round 1, and then he landed a big punch. And round 2, was early, but he landed a big punch. And then against Cannonier, he was losing a lot of the fight, and then he landed the big punch and got the finish. And I was listening to the MMA Guru. He was talking about his prediction for this fight, and he was talking about Imavov has these moments of excellence where he makes up he separates himself from the pack. He has these big rocks his opponent or gets a big takedown or has some clutch moment in the fight, and that's why he wins these fights. And I agree, he does have these big moments. However, if he doesn't have these moments, he's losing these fights. It's easy to say if he doesn't knock out Adesanya probably beats him. but he did knock out Adesanya, and it's easy to say if he didn't finish Cannonier, he probably would have lost. However, when you look at Sean Strickland, the other boring, tit-for-tat outside, fighter that he fought, he didn't have any big moments, and he lost the fight. And Strickland took that fight on short notice, 3 weeks after fighting. I think he took his next fight on short notice. Whatever. Wait, no, didn't he? Yeah, didn't he take this fight right after the Cannonier fight? So yeah, I like Borallho to win this fight as a tit-for-tat outside fighter. I really like his grappling. I think not enough people are talking about his fight with Brendan Allen and Nashi Imavov and how unimpressive he looked in the grappling in the first round. I know that it was, it wasn't like a clean takedown. I think it was like a slip, and then Brendan Allen ended up in a good position and kept him there for the rest of the round. However, this is a 5-round fight. Pretty good chance that a slipper or, whatever happens, and also a pretty good chance that Borallho just takes him down. I think if Borallho gets a good position, he can hold a good position against Imavov. He fought Abus Magomedov, who isn't as good as Imavov. I'll give him that. But the guy who you got to worry about on the feet, you got to minimize these big moments from, and he was able to take him down, get his back, prevent him from getting any dominant positions or having too much time on the feet, and that he easily beat Abus doing that. And yeah, if he's going to use grappling, I think he's good enough to use it to neutralize Imavov's, the shit you got to worry about with him. What else? Also, Borallho is a southpaw, and I guess Adesanya did get knocked out when he went southpaw. Or no, he got knocked out when he went orthodox, because he got the right hand over the lead hand. And southpaws are known for, I guess mainly in boxing, but it's also true in kickboxing and MMA. Southpaws are kind of known for, if it's an orthodox versus southpaw matchup, less is going to happen. You're farther from your opponent's target. You got the whole lead hand in the way. Your power hand is farther from their chin. You can't throw punches or power punches over the jab. If they're going to fight opposite stance, which pretty good chance they are, I think it's very unlikely I think it's more likely that this fight is boring and less stuff happens. And the more or less stuff happens, or I guess the less stuff that happens, I think the greater the chances of Borallho winning. I liked Imavov in the hand fight against Adesanya, so this is a point against Borallho. But I think Imavov looked really good in the hand fighting against Adesanya, which is impressive because Adesanya looked good in the hand fight against Pereira, and Pereira's a pretty good hand fighter. But I don't know how much of a impact it's going to have. I would compare Anderson Silva's outside style to a guy like Anderson Silva. Did I say Anderson? I would compare Adesanya to Anderson Silva. I think that's what I meant to say. And then I'll compare Borallho to like a Lyoto Machida, where it's like he's an outside fighter, but it's not outside keeps and kicks and shit like that like Adesanya does. It's outside, wait for you to miss, and then I'll throw a quick right hand down the pipe and then maybe take you down. So I think the hand fight would be a negative against Borallho, because that leaves you open to the counters that Borallho likes to use. So yeah, I think Borallho has a lot of good matchups on the feet. I think he has an advantage in the grappling. And I think that he's, when you think about Borallho's entire UFC career, he's never really been in these moments that Imavov needs to win the fights. And I know Adesanya was rarely, in those moments, but in the fight that he fought before, in the two fights that he fought before Imavov, the Duplessis fight and the Strickland fight, we finally saw Adesanya fall victim to getting clipped with a big punch or getting taken down and getting his back taken, which are the kind of moments that Imavov needs to succeed. And you never really see Borallho do this. You never see Borallho get rocked. You never see Borallho get taken down and put him out or get his back taken. And I think Imavov needs these opportunities to win against a high-level fighter. I think other than Delija, I'm trying to think. He needed it against Cannonier. He needed it against Adesanya. He didn't have a big moment against Brendan Allen, but he did take advantage of a massive mistake of Brendan Allen, and that Brendan Allen gassed out really bad in the first round. So I think Imavov needs these chink in the armor moments where he's like, this is where I need to take advantage and succeed. And I don't really see that happening against Kyle Borallho, especially with his style being so good for slowing everything down and reducing opponents' opportunities. So because of that, I'm picking Borallho by decision. One thing that makes me a little, maybe not concerned, but I could see Imavov having an advantage is Borallho in his last fight against Cannonier. Cannonier switched to southpaw like at a certain point in the fight, and Borallho took on like a lot more like of a boxing heavy stance, and that is where he found his most success. That's where he rocked that's where he rocked Cannonier really bad and almost finished him in the 5th round. However, I would be worried about him getting hit from like a boxing stance where he's going to be on the inside. He's going to, go maybe with a jab or a light kick, wait for a return, and then throw third. And I think that's really leaving yourself open against a guy who's as skilled as Imavov, and who's as dynamic as Imavov. I would be worried about Imavov shooting like a react double leg a lot more than I got at Cannonier, especially in their matchup. So I don't want Borallho to come out in a boxing stance. However, the success that he showed against Cannonier and the lack of, not success that he's had in that stance, I guess we've seen very little of him in this boxing stance, and what he's shown has been successful. So I think he possibly could be very good out of the stance. I find it more likely that he'd win in his like longer side-on stance. So yeah, that's all I have to say about these fights. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Hopefully my voice is better for next week's card. I can't remember what next week's card is, but I remember it. Oh no, it was pretty shit, wasn't it? I don't know. This is a pretty decent card. We've got a lot of outside of the UFC champions. We'll see how a lot of them pan out. I'm excited for most of them. I do think the main event will be boring if my prediction is correct, but it's a good matchup. Sometimes good matchups are exciting even if they're boring. So there's that. Like I said, let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. If there's a certain pick you want to hear more about, you can leave a comment. You can follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description. Again, subscribe, like the video. I have a playlist with all my predictions for the whole year on my channel. This video will be in that playlist. And I think that's it. Yeah, thank you for listening. Pardon me if my voice has been bad or if I've been speaking poorly. I've been chasing sentences with this Tampico Zero Sugar. So yeah, that is all. Again, thank you for listening.